those shots were cool.
Good evening and welcome to WARK. Tonight we have a cooking show called A Walk on the Wild Side, and your guest chef for this evening is Eric Rosen. Eric, welcome to the show. Your interest in cooking goes back to when?
About the same time I began eating, Michael. I found that after a while, if I didn't cook, I couldn't eat.
Is this something you do professionally, cooking?
Not normally, although I am doing it now. Normally I'm a saxophonist, but I am working these days at the Andes Hotel in Andes, New York, which was once a part of South America, as a cook.
Now, the thing you're going to cook for us today is a Chinese dish, and the title of the show is A Walk on the Wild Side. Tell us something about your interest in Chinese cooking and some of its basics.
Well, I don't have much to say about that, except I've always liked Chinese cooking, so I learned how to do it. And we're going to do a stir-fry dish based on chicken. It's a dish of my own invention. And it's made entirely of, with one exception, it's made up of entirely of ingredients that can be obtained very easily locally. The only ingredient that is a little exotic are called cellophane noodles, which are also called many other things. But they're a noodle made out of mung bean starch.
Can we show that to the camera?
These have already been soaked and reconstituted. They're sort of slippery in texture. They're very light, sort of pasta substitute, and I've used it in many pasta dishes, especially in the summer, because it is very light. To use it, merely soak it in hot water for about 15 minutes, and it's usable. But the main ingredient of this dish is chicken, and the chicken is shredded very finely. Here is chicken that has been shredded already, and it's been marinated in egg white, which is a trick that the Chinese use. It makes the texture more interesting, and it enhances the flavor very subtly, and also makes a better appearance. But I'd like to show you how I shredded the chicken breast. First of all, I boned and skinned the chicken breast. Here's a chicken breast quarter. And the easiest way to do it is to freeze the breast, and then merely slice it on an angle. Slice it into very thin slices. The thinner the slice, the better. At an angle for a larger slice. And one reason for slicing everything so thinly is because in China there was always a shortage of fuel, because the large population got rid of the trees pretty quick. And also, you can cook very quickly when something is cut into very thin, uniform shreds or slices. Here's a bunch of slices. We'll just stack them and shred them as finely as you possibly can.
Okay. Is it possible to do this by actually pulling the chicken breast apart and shred it in that manner, or it has to be done this way?
I never tried that, but this is the way that I'm accustomed to doing it. It's probably the easiest, only if the breast is frozen.
And then we have some very fine pieces here, as we can see, so it is in fact shredded. And these will cook very quickly too.
Yes. Like I said, these are marinated in a mixture of egg white. In this, there's about half an egg white and some cornstarch. Also, I believe I put a little bit of sugar and a little bit of sherry in here. Now, the other principal ingredients of the dish, we have leeks, which I previously shredded here.
Okay.
I'll show you very quickly how to deal with a leek. Leeks are very dirty, generally. They're layers of dirt and sand among the leaves. So basically you just separate it and wash it, and then shred it, again, very finely, like that.
Okay.
And also we have shredded bamboo shoots in this dish. These are available in supermarkets. It's best to buy a whole bamboo shoot in cans because it's easier to slice. These are the sliced bamboo shoots, which I very carefully had to stack up and slice. But the result is the same. Also going to use a little bit of peas for a garnish.
Okay.
And this is ginger root, which used to be a fairly exotic ingredient, but now is available in many supermarkets and easy to come by. This is only going to be used as a flavoring in this dish and is not a principal ingredient. I guess I will get the wok hot.
One of the things that the Chinese like to do with their cuisine is to combine different textures, so as the diner enjoys the meal in his mouth or her mouth, or a number of different flavors. Will that also exist here in your recipe, Eric?
Well, this isn't so much a textural dish. I think this would be part of a meal with other dishes, with something. Another dish might be crispy, or this is mostly a combination of flavored dish, I would say, and also a little bit of visual appeal. And right now I'm going to show you some of the basic techniques of stir frying. We're going to cook this chicken twice. Once in a fairly large amount of oil, only for a few seconds, until the pieces separate. And once the wok is hot, we put this oil in here. And I think I'm going to add a little more oil to this. Okay, if I can find it, there it is.
Now, those at home might be wondering why the oil is sputtering, and that is, in fact, that we had used that previously, so it wasn't pure.
Yes. This is making a terrible mess. But when the oil is warm, we're not going to wait until the oil is very hot for the first fry. This can be done also in a small amount of oil, but I find that the result is not as good, especially with chicken. If you do pork or some other meats, you can use perhaps a spoonful of oil. The wok itself is constructed the way it curves, so you can cook with perhaps a tablespoon of oil. And because you keep everything in constant motion when you stir fry, you can do that. But I think our oil is approaching readiness. I think when it stops spluttering, we can put this in there. So this will be a dish of chicken with shredded leek, shredded bamboo shoot, and cellophane noodles. When it's available, I also often use Chinese cabbage. Stuff is hot.
Probably noisy there at home as well.
I think I'm going to lower the flame on this slightly for the entire kitchen is covered with oil. I'm going to gently slip this chicken in. And we're going to cook it very briefly, only until the chicken separates. You may have to work pretty hard to get these shreds to separate.
Okay. And then visually, once the chef noticed that it's separated, that will be the initial stage of cooking?
That will be the end of the initial stage of cooking. And we're going to drain this in just a second. And then we're going to cook our vegetables. And I'll give this about 75% separation rate here, so let's drain it.
One of the other criterion for cooking chicken has always been to lose its pinkness. Is that important here in the initial stage?
Well, you can leave a little bit of pinkness in it because it is going to cook again. But basically you want it mostly to turn white and to separate. It's mostly separated and mostly white. Now for the second stage of cooking, it'll be a little different. And then we're going to get the oil much hotter. And we are only going to use a very small amount, perhaps a tablespoon.
And you mentioned, as we talked earlier, that you like to use peanut oil.
Yes, I find any oil, any vegetable oil is sufficient. Peanut oil is perhaps my favorite, but the only caveat is not to use olive oil, because a Chinese dish with olive oil tastes extremely strange. We're going to flavor this dish lightly with ginger. I'm going to take a couple of slices, and I'm not going to peel them because we're not going to eat them. If the ginger was to be eaten, I would peel it. crush them lightly, and put them in the oil. Now we keep them in the oil for a couple of minutes to impart the oil with the flavor of the ginger.
And then we'll actually discard them?
Yes. That will put them in this plate that you're holding here.
Now I notice as we let the smaller amount of oil heat, we now have smoke coming. Is that something that one should be concerned about, or that indicates the right temperature?
It indicates that the oil is hot. It shouldn't be much hotter than this. Now we're going to remove the ginger. Ginger is removed. And now it's important to use the vegetable that's going to cook in the longest cooking time first. And I sort of judge this to be the leeks. So I'm going to put the leeks in. Shredded leek. Stir frying is a matter of constant motion. Everything must keep going. With oil this hot, if you don't keep stirring, it's very possible that something will burn. And next we're going to add our bamboo shoots. You may dump them right in there.
Okay.
Mix that very quickly.
And what would you like next?
The next ingredients are the cellophane noodles, which should be broken in pieces because they're very long. I'm quickly going to dismember these noodles and toss them in here. Keep everything going constantly.
Lovely shades of color with the different color of green and the
Yes.
leek, and now the cellophane noodles, which are translucent white.
And now we're going to throw in a little bit of a sauce here as a binder, which I unfortunately have neglected to make in advance, which is important that you do. Michael, if you take several spoonfuls of that chicken broth, and I think about a spoonful of sugar, and some cornstarch, about 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, I would judge. And a little bit of salt because there's no soy sauce in this dish. Spoonful or so of salt. And mix it very carefully, very completely. Take the chicken and return it to the pan, making sure again that the shreds are as separate as possible, so they all cook all the way through. And also some sherry, I think about 2 tablespoons of sherry in there. This is not a Chinese sherry, but it's an American cocktail sherry, which I find not suitable for drinking, but wonderful as a substitute for Chinese rice wine, which is what would be normally used in this dish.
Okay.
Now everything is mixed together. We're going to put that in here.
Okay, right in the center. I noticed you made a place for it.
Yes, otherwise it might be on the floor anywhere. You never can tell. And it'll thicken, and it'll bind a little bit of a sauce. And this dish in combination with a couple of others. Generally a Chinese meal has a dish for every person present. That's all thickened, and we put these green peas in as a garnish, merely to provide a little color, a little extra flavor. And the dish is done. The total cooking time I would imagine to be maybe 3 minutes. Preparation time is much longer, but all the preparation can be done in advance. And if you have a dinner party or some kind of social occasion, you can prepare everything in advance and cook it while your guests wait.
Here you have it then, Eric's original recipe. Do we have a name for this, Eric?
Frank, I think. No, there is no name for this. It's chicken and cellophane noodles, or without the cellophane noodles, you can call it chicken and leeks. It's a dish of shredded chicken and shredded vegetables. And although it's in the Chinese spirit, although myself not being Chinese, I don't know if you can call it an authentic Chinese dish, but I think you'll find it quite good.
Well, come and join us and eat with your eyes as we enjoy Frank, Eric's chicken dish. Okay. Now we're about to enjoy the dish, and we're using the traditional Chinese implements reading, chopsticks. Eric, would you give us a little instruction?
Yes, these are chopsticks, as you said. The easiest way to master these is merely to keep the bottom chopstick without movement, to keep it non-movable, or whatever the word is, and move the chopstick between your index finger and thumb, like that. Generally, any way you can keep the bottom chopstick straight and move the top one makes it easy.
Well,
Chinese food really doesn't taste right with forks.
very good.
I should have wooden forks. Thank you.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for possible further broadcasting. Thank you.
Stuff is terrible.
Good evening and welcome to WARK. I'm Michael Finberg, and we're proud to bring you a cooking show this evening. We're outside because one of the ingredients we'll use in today's recipe is an edible wild plant. The guest chef for the show is Raab. Howard, welcome to the show.
Hello, Michael.
There are a great number of edible wild plants in the Catskill Mountains. What are some that you've come across in your time?
As you said, there's quite a few out here in the Catskills. Some are wild leeks, burdock root, wild ginger. The list is endless. There's a whole book on them right here.
Okay, now the ingredient we're using today is daylilies, which I understand is not an indigenous plant.
No, daylilies were brought here by the Dutch originally, and having since escaped from people's garden and being a very prolific plant, it's found its way into people's backyards, roadsides, everywhere. It occurs all over the area. Very, very abundant.
And the book indicates that most, if not all, parts of the daylily plant are in fact edible.
Yes, that's true. The shoots in the early spring are edible, the flowers are edible, the flower buds are edible, and the rootstock, which is actually a tuber-like root, is edible as well.
Mm-hmm. And the best time to harvest the daylily buds, I understand, is a little before where we are presently, mid-July.
Yeah, we're at the tail end of the season now. The plants are mostly died out, and there's a few remaining flowers that can be harvested, but pretty much it's over with for now.
Okay. Now, as should the viewers decide to go out and pick some daylily buds, I know you have a warning for them about their location.
Yes, I would refrain from picking them from the side of the road, or any wild plants on the side of the road, because they're just as subject to chemical and pollution damage from exhaust fumes as anything else would be. And even though they may look fine, it affects the taste and it affects the quality of the food.
Something else that you would advise people who go out to harvest edible plants is to use the Peterson's Guide or a similar guide to wild plants. And why is that?
It's about the safest way to go about it. The books that are available are quite complete. They address the points of identification so that you have very little chance of making any errors, and identify the poisonous plants. And if you stick to a good book, you really can't make any mistake.
Okay. Now, you've brought the Peterson's Guide along with you, and you have, in fact, a picture of the daylily for the viewers to see?
Yes. The guide itself lists many ways to prepare it. Daylily is a very versatile plant. They mention in using them in salads, or frying them, or steaming them, or sautéing them. It's quite a variety of ways you can prepare it, and it's tasty every way.
And which way will we use today?
We're going to steam them.
Okay. And we have a picture for the audience?
Yes, there's a color picture, as well as there's a black and white diagram showing you all the identification marks, and then they give you a color picture, which I'll hold up for the camera. And here you see the actual live plant. I'm going to show you which part of the plant we're going to harvest. Although people harvest the flowers when they're fully open, we're going to take the buds. And the buds we want are the ones that are going to open the following day. If you look at this plant, you'll see that there's one flower that's blooming, and among them are these smaller buds in a number of different sizes and various shades of color. And you'll usually find one that looks like this. Well, I'll hold this one up. It looks like this. It's bright orange, but it hasn't opened yet. Or it's kind of a dull orange. It hasn't opened yet. That's the bud that we're going to pick. Now I'll show you. We just break it off right at the bottom here so that it has a little stem. And we'll take this back to the kitchen, or harvest a whole bunch of them, and take it back to the kitchen, and this bud's for you.
Now we're in Howard's kitchen, and we're going to add a few things to the daylily buds. Howard, what are they going to be?
Actually, we're not going to add anything to the daylily buds. We're going to prepare an egg dish to go along with them. The buds we're going to steam by themselves and then serve them with butter and lemon. And the eggs are going to be scrambled eggs and cream cheese.
Okay.
Also, I'm going to add to the eggs some chives. As you can see here, the ingredients: chives, some Spanish olives, fresh cream cheese, which is almost at room temperature. I took it out a while ago so it would get soft. The eggs also are at room temperature. I've already broken them and mixed this up. With eggs, it's always best to start with eggs at room temperature. And that's what we're going to do.
Okay, I noticed you used about a third of the package of cream cheese.
Actually less than that. Probably a quarter of the package. It was a large package. It goes by taste. The more you use, the more it's going to taste like cream cheese. And the more fluffy the eggs are going to be. The cream cheese will combine with the eggs and make it airy and light.
Okay, now this won't be an omelet. This will actually be scrambled eggs on your griddle here.
That's right, scrambled eggs. To cook them, I'm going to steam the daylilies. This is a regular pot, but it's got a steamer basket in it. Thank you. That's the steamer basket. Now I'm going to bring the water to a boil, which it almost is, and I'm going to preheat the griddle. Now it's important with a cast iron griddle like this to heat it real slow. You don't want to have a real hot griddle to put the eggs on, but the griddle should be thoroughly heated throughout. All right, the water's boiling. There's one that's just opening.
About how long will we steam them for, Howard?
Not more than a couple of minutes, maybe a minute and a half. I'll check them at about a minute and a half and see what they look like, and then I'll turn the water off. Let them sit there and steam in the hot water. And I'll turn the heat down on that. Let them steam slowly. Now the griddle, I've already preheated the griddle, so we don't have to wait too long for that. A little butter. Now I don't know if the camera can see this. The butter is sizzling, but it's not burning. If it was a very hot griddle, the butter would start immediately turning brown. You don't want that. The best way to tell when a pan is ready is to smell it. When the butter is ready, you'll smell the smell of butter, and that's the time to add your eggs. Now, I didn't mix these too much, just enough to break up the yolks and the whites, but I don't like to get them all one color. I like it to be a blend.
Makes a lovely looking dish right here with the red from the pimentos, the green from the chives, the yellow of the eggs, and the white of the cream cheese.
Now I'm going to let this set for a couple of seconds till the egg starts to set. Or cover my stove.
So you have a leak in your griddle here.
It's all the heavy rain we've been having. Okay. Turn up the heat a little bit more. The eggs are now starting to set. I can start folding them and stirring them as it thickens. What we're trying to do here is melt the cream cheese in with the egg. It's not like an omelet where you might fold the egg around the cream cheese and let it melt inside. This is going to be combined with the egg.
And in the end, will there still remain some lumps of the cream cheese?
Probably not. Now, there are other ways to do this where you can get that effect. What I like is that the cream cheese fluffs up the egg and makes it real light, and becomes part of it. You almost can't see the difference.
One of the things I've noticed in cooking with eggs and cheese is that it normally leaves the eggs a little loose. Will that happen in this case?
Well, you can cook this as long as you want and make the eggs as stiff as you want. But the cheese is always going to keep it somewhat soft. I don't like scrambled eggs to be too hard, but I don't like them to be too loose. It's kind of an average or a medium. See, as it starts to set, then you have to work faster. Constant folding. And you see the cream cheese is disappearing. It's combining with the egg. About a minute and a half. These are doing very well. They're starting to get limp.
Is that the test for the daylilies, or does one test them by tasting?
Well, what you want to do is wait till they get real limp, like when you cook spinach. But overcooking them just makes them into a mush, which isn't very appetizing. It's just as tasty. Now the eggs are just about done. I can turn the heat off because the cast iron pan will keep the heat for quite a while. Okay, I have a plate here.
Certainly do look nice and fluffy, as you said they would.
Okay for the chef?
Yeah, of course. How else will we be sure?
Now the lilies are done.
Okay,
I can give you a shot of what they look like.
Yes, I noticed that they change a little deeper orange as we got to see some of the inside, and they are in fact quite limp, as you said.
Set them down, make an attractive looking plate.
Hard to do when one's in a hurry in the morning, though, I imagine.
Well, it's always worth a little extra care to enjoy your breakfast or any meal. Yeah, I think that ought to keep you busy. Now I'll put a little butter on it. I like them with some salt, but that's a personal preference. And voila.
Yes, lovely looking Catskill Mountain breakfast. Very nice.
And now for the final piece de resistance, I'm going to add some lemon. And a word about how I do this. You take a whole lemon and roll it between your hand and the table before you do anything else to it while it's still intact. And you roll it real hard until the inside is all crushed up. Then you take a knife and you make a cut in the bottom of it and another cut across it so you have a little crisscross in the bottom. I cut off the little nipple on there. And then you just squeeze it on. Very handy. You can store it in the refrigerator that way.
Doesn't have a green cap, though, like the one in my refrigerator?
No, I think you can buy little plastic caps for that. And that's breakfast.
Well, come and enjoy it with us as we now have a Catskill Mountain breakfast prepared by Howard Raab. Thank you. I'm anxious to try the daylilies first.
Well, they have little handles. You can just hold them by the little stem.
Very nice and crunchy and taste a little bit like asparagus.
Yes, they do taste a little like asparagus, a little that sweet taste. I actually like them better than asparagus. They don't have any side effects.
Yes. Right, and now for the eggs. Just as you said, nice and fluffy. I like the sour taste of the olives with it. Very nice, Howard.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Should you have any questions about the recipes, please write to me, Michael Finberg, care of Post Office Box 485 in Margaretville, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for possible further broadcasting.